What's up, family? It's your favorite cousin Rich, back again. Delighted to bring you episode 31 with Rich Talks. And today we're going to talk about the fear of being forgotten. Yes, the fear of being forgotten. And how the fear of being forgotten shapes how we live our life. The things that we do, don't do, in order for us not to be forgotten, either momentarily or once we are no longer here. But just in general, just things that we do in order to not be forgotten. You see, nobody wants to be forgotten. Everybody wants to have let me put it like this. Everybody wants to be looked at to have a fond memory of themselves when they are no longer in the presence of people. That's what I believe. Inherently, that's how we all start out. May not be how we all end, but I believe that's how we all start out. I believe it's just the ways of the human. Is to want to be in that position. You know? Who wants to be forgotten? That's really the question you have to ask. It's almost like a waste. Everybody wants to be remembered. Now, I didn't say remembered for good things. Sometimes that's not always the case. But nobody wants to be forgotten. And the reason why I say not always for good things is because you have some people who are, I would say, not law-abiding citizens. Not necessarily saying they're bad people, but just non-law-abiding citizens, right? Non-law-abiding citizens who still want to be remembered, who don't want to be forgotten. And sometimes these people make a greater impact on society, or are remembered greatly by society, than people who do good. We're looking at people like Al Capone, one of the greatest gangsters of all time. He's never going to be forgotten. You look at Bonnie and Clyde. They're never going to be forgotten. Or the Manson guy. He's never going to be forgotten. Now, were they doing these things deliberately so they won't be forgotten? I can't say that. But the things that they did were so great that they will never be forgotten. So I believe that's the way that we should live our life. Not evil or something contrary to being law-abiding. Because you can flip the script and look at people like Mother Teresa. You can flip the script and look at people like Malcolm X. You can even flip the script and look at people like Jesus. The greatest person that they said has ever walked this face of the planet. Right? So all these people were never forgotten. They're all remembered in time. And the thing is, it's just how they affected people. People feel some type of way about them when they're mentioned. Or people feel some type of way about them when they come across their name. Or just memories about them. And that's how you never be forgotten. So you have to make an impact on people. You can't just be. You have to make an impact on people. Now you say, is this something that you should purposely do? Purposely live your life to never be forgotten? Purposely? Is this how you should purposely live your life? I used to think so. I used to think life was that important that you should leave your mark and everybody should remember you. But as I've gotten older, I noticed that life is just to be experienced, to be lived. Not to be wasted, but to be lived. And in that, if you do affect people, cool. And if you don't, cool. Because the way you live your life could impact somebody who can change the world. See, we all have a hand in it. We all have a part in it. So to say just because this person didn't necessarily leave their mark to be remembered doesn't mean that, they lived an unfulfilling life. No. So in a sense, it's almost at what level are people wanting to be remembered? Because now I have to backtrack and say, to an extent, certain extent, everyone will be remembered. Just not as great as a Martin Luther King or Malcolm X or Al Capone. But everybody would be remembered in some sense or some form. Nobody is going to be forgotten. Because even something little can impact someone's life. Even if that person doesn't impact the world, this one person can impact your life to the point where you won't forget about them. And like I said, it's not in the point, and it's not in the aspect of changing the world. It might just be a simple conversation. It might just be you brushing up against them, asking them a question, or somebody just having some sort of revelation that they've given you. And that changes, how you see the world in a sense. So it's not always something great that impacts everyone. Sometimes it can be something so simple. Now, what does it mean to leave a legacy? I think that's the big difference between just not being forgotten, being remembered, and on the stature of what I was speaking on when I was speaking about a Malcolm X or Al Capone. It's funny because those are my two favorite people. Those are one of my two favorite people. Malcolm X on one end and they have Al Capone on the other. It gets deeper about why I see, I don't want to say respect, but I want to say respect because people are going to say, oh, you respect the gangster, and it gets deeper. But two people who come to mind when I think about things like legacy, even someone like Michael Jordan. My thing is, you have to impact lives greatly in order to be at that part where you talk about legacy. Legacy is when you become, in a sense, immortal. That's the part where you transcend being a human. To me, legacy happens when you impact the world and people so greatly that now, when you pass, your death or you no longer being here transcends that even more. And what do you mean? At this point, you become immortal. See? At this point, you're no longer human, if that makes sense. If we speak on someone like Michael Jackson, this is the third one that I would add to my list of people I believe are immortal that I respect. If you look at Michael Jackson, right? Michael Jackson was immortal. He impacted the world so greatly that he is now immortal. Meaning, just because he has left his life suit doesn't necessarily mean that he is no longer here. See, people like that have impacted the world so greatly that their presence is almost always here, will never leave. Michael Jackson is still here. Just because his actual physical body suit is not here, he's still here. Michael Jackson is immortal. I think this is how you transcend life, is when you impact people so greatly, so deeply. You know, like Michael Jackson has helped so many people. And I don't believe it was like, oh, that was his necessary purpose. No, he was living in his purpose. He was living in his purpose greatly. But it's just so, it was so great. The impact that he had was so outstanding that he transcended being a human. You know, he's no longer a human. And I believe that's a beautiful thing, is where you can get to that point of transcending being a human to where, you know, you're no longer a human, especially after your passing. That, to me, that's just because of how greatly you've impacted the world. That's what it means to me, is how greatly you've impacted the world. You can't go on any corner of the world and say, you can't go on any corner of the world without people knowing Michael Jackson. That's an immortal person. That is somebody who will never be forgotten along the lines of somebody like Jesus. And some people may look at me being strange, putting Michael Jackson in the same line as Jesus. But if you take a step back, Jesus has impacted a certain culture, people who follow a certain religion. If you don't follow that set religion, then Jesus is merely just but a name, correct? So what if we take a look at someone like Michael Jackson, where he transcends religions, he transcends cultures, he transcended music. Michael Jackson was somebody who was bigger than music. So if you look at somebody like that, that's how someone becomes immortal. You have to be at that level. Of having the ability to impact people across different life paths, different cultures, different religions, bring people together. That's what makes you immortal. Could you bring people together from different cultures, different religions, different races, different backgrounds? And not necessarily saying for peace, but that would be a beautiful thing for peace. But, you know, but is that something that you could do? That's what makes you immortal. Look at someone like Michael Jordan, the basketball player. He's immortal. Why? Michael Jordan, the basketball player, is greater than the actual Michael Jeffrey Jordan. And the reason why I say that is the impact that Michael Jordan had will leave a legacy and will transcend life for so long. His shoes, the clothes, the game, People today are still watching those old videos of how to play basketball, picking up little nuggets. The greatest basketball players who came after him will all say that they picked up nuggets. Will all say they picked up nuggets from him. Kobe Bryant, LeBron James, Kyrie Irving, all these people. That's what happens when you transcend, being regular or just doing you, and that's it. It's almost you have to reach your highest self and stay there, if not get higher than your highest self, if that's even possible. And this is how you leave a legacy. Think about someone who you believe has made a great impact on the world, that transcends cultures, races, religions, backgrounds, to where two people from different religions, different backgrounds, different ideologies, states of mind have the ability to come together under this one, this one common ground. That's where the Michael Jackson comes from. You can find people from different, multiple backgrounds listening to a Michael Jackson song or going to a concert. Same with talking about Michael Jordan playing basketball. Same with how Mother Teresa changed the world. Is if you can bring people together. I think that's the biggest thing. If you're able to bring people together through your actions and through your works of what you've done while being here, that's what allows you to have a legacy. Is if your works can outlive you. Do the things that you do while we're still alive, do they live past you? Or do they stop once you stop being alive? Now, should everybody try to be immortal or live a legacy? No, I wouldn't necessarily say. Because it might not have been your life path, might not have been your life purpose. And that's okay. And some of these people, I don't think their initial intentions was to do that. It just so happened to happen. Maybe down the line when they saw the ability to, they took advantage of it and went full throttle. But from the beginning, I wouldn't say so. I don't think any of us do. I think when you come out the gate with that intention, I don't think it necessarily works out. Just saying. Because your intentions are screwed. And then that could lead you down an evil path. That's why I think some people just did it for the love or minor momentary things. And then when they saw the ability and they were almost there, that's when it went full throttle. But the intentions were already set on something positive. The righteousness was already set in place. They were already guided to start taking that path. So do people have a fear of being forgotten? Of course. I think that's why they try to live their life so wild, so on edge, and really try their hardest to be seen, to be felt. Now, would you say this is something good, something bad? If you have a fear of being forgotten, then I think that's healthy. Having a fear of being forgotten, that's healthy. I think when you obsess about it and when you go to the extremes so you won't be forgotten, I think that's taking you away now from life's mission, life path that was trying to guide you down. You know, you're trying to be or do something so epic where that might not have been in your cards. So now you're taking on a whole different spirit, a whole different person, in order for you not to be forgotten. That's why I say just live life. Live life, not in the aspect of trying to be remembered, do something great. No, just live life. Is it a waste of life if you're forgotten? No, because it's your life. You impacted someone somehow, some way. That's good enough. If you respect life, that's good enough. I think people who have this fear of being forgotten, and it roots them deeply, it stems from something else. It stems from feeling like they're inadequate, they're insufficient, you know, or they never had the love, or they never had someone there for them to tell them that they mattered. So because you may feel insignificant, or someone tells you doesn't give you that love that you need, or whatever, that forces you to seek it from the world. And if you have that fear, like I said, that could lead you down a road of something that you weren't meant to go down. How many times have we seen movies and the criminals were talking about, oh, I want to be remembered as the greatest this. And we look at a backstory, and they were neglected as a kid. They didn't get the attention that they thought they deserved as a kid. So now all that forced them to seek it the best way or any way possible. And I know that may be a movie, but remember, a lot of times art imitates what? Life. So let's not forget that. So is there a meaning beyond legacy? Is there a reason? How do we go about life now? I said you go about life as if there was no point in leaving a legacy. You go about life as if you're not even trying to be remembered for something great. Just let it happen. If it's meant to be, it will be. If it's not, it won't. You just have to live life, enjoy life, enjoy yourself. It's not always about doing something great. It's not always about that. We get so caught up in that because I feel like we all want to be remembered, you know. We all want to do something great. Sometimes it's not in our cards. Sometimes it's not in certain people's cards. Sometimes the cards that some people were dealt was just to what? Enjoy life. Enjoy the fruits of other people's legacy. What do you mean by enjoy the fruits of other people's legacy? Well, Michael Jordan, right? One of the greatest basketball players ever. Someone who's immortal. Someone who's left a legacy. And he has, what, 2 sons and a daughter? Who are not professional basketball players. Let me just leave it like that respectfully. Right? They're not professional basketball players. So, was it their mission to leave a legacy as great as their father? At one point in time, they may have thought it, tried to live it. But when you try to fill shoes that are so big, you will soon come to realize that that wasn't your mission. That's what stems frustration. Trying to fill the shoes that you weren't meant to fill. You know, I've always felt that was kind of strange and odd. How sometimes one parent does something and you may believe that that was your life path as well, and it never turns out the same. I.e., Michael Jordan and his sons playing basketball. Michael Jordan, the greatest basketball player ever. His sons didn't even make it in the NBA. So imagine if they didn't try to live in the legacy of their father, try to fill those shoes. Imagine what would have happened, the life they could have lived without that added pressure of being great. You know? Oh, my father was the greatest basketball player, so I had to fill those shoes. No, imagine if they sat down and really chose something that aligned and spoke with them. You could take that same energy that you got from your father, you know, being the greatest basketball player. You can take that same energy, but you don't necessarily have to go down that same path. You can harness that energy and now use it to your advantage of something that you were meant here to do and live a fulfilling life. Live a life worth being remembered. Almost to the point where now you're leaving a legacy rooted in what you were put here to do and not trying to fill someone else's shoes. That's why I believe we should all run our own race. We should all live our own life. How many times have we wasted our life? I was going to say ruined our life, but how many times have we wasted our life in order to fulfill the shoes and to be remembered by other people, only for us to forget ourselves? Don't get so caught up in trying to be remembered by the world and leave this great impact that you forget and lose yourself. I think that's the worst. First, the thing is appreciate and accept yourself on the journey that you're on. And then when you appreciate and accept yourself on the journey that you're on, now you just live. You live to the best of your ability. You live your greatness. And through that, if you leave a giant mark on the world, congratulations. And if not, it doesn't necessarily matter because you've done what you were supposed to do, which is just live life. Like I said, the only wrong I believe is trying to fulfill the shoes of someone else. The only wrong I believe is trying to live according to someone else and live to the appeasement of someone else or the world, and you forget yourself. I think that's the greatest tragedy. This was a good talk. Episode 31 of Rich Talks, The Fear of Being Forgotten. I hope this helped somebody today. It's your favorite cousin. I love y'all. Y'all be safe. Love and blessings.